My name is Frank Morales. I'm an Episcopal priest. I'm a squatter, I'm a writer, and I guess I'm an activist of sorts.
When did you find yourself in the city?
I was born and raised here on the Avenue D in the Jacob Riis projects on Lower East Side here, and I've been pretty much here all my life.
What do the streets look like when you were growing up in the city?
When I was growing up, this would be in the 50s and 60s, the streets were, well, it was pretty dense. I mean, there weren't a lot of vacant spaces. The buildings were intact. The Lower East Side is typified by low-rise, six-story walk-ups, tenements, and so forth. But fairly stable in the 50s. Yeah. Very diverse, real eclectic community. But then as we moved into the 60s and the situation became a lot more, there were a lot more drugs and police activity and political grassroots organizing going on and that sort of thing, eventually led into a period of abandonment, which there are a lot of reasons for that, but yeah. There was disinvestment from the neighborhoods and various other forces came into play, such that there then was a period where there was a lot of destruction of the housing. So,
do you want to tell us what, I mean, we hear about disinvestment, redlining. For somebody that's not familiar with banking practices in relations to housing stock, what's disinvestment? What would that mean? How does that affect housing?
Well, a lot of neighborhood people, for instance, are not familiar with why neighborhoods, quote unquote, go down.
Right.
Like if you talk to a local neighborhood person, they'll say the neighborhood used to really be good in the 50s, but then by the 70s everything started to go down, and they really don't know. And one of the invisible forces behind the scenes is what we refer to as disinvestment, or bank disinvestment, or redlining.
Right.
And essentially what that's about is that small owners, particularly the people who own a lot of the tenements around here, whether it be Germans or the Polish or the Russians and so forth, who'd come in the waves of immigration, these are small owners, they relied on refinancing of their houses in order to make the repairs.
Right.
Well, at a certain period of time in the 70s and right through that period, the local banks that they might have been dealing with for years and years and years refused to refinance their loans. Suddenly they were not able to get a refinancing for their houses based on the fact that the banks, the redlining concept means that they have a map in their offices with the Lower East Side, and they have a red line all around that. And in that area,
or Bed-Stuy,
or East Harlem, or the Bronx. And in those neighborhoods, loans would not go.
Right.
So there was a disinvestment. But the money is pulled out of the neighborhoods. The small owners can't refinance their buildings and so forth. Long story short, that coupled with less sanitation pickup, an influx of drugs, arson for profit, and there's a synergy of effects that comes into play, and neighborhoods go down.
Why would there be arson for profit? Why would that be a way? Why would a building owner want to? You know, we all heard about the Bronx in the 70s. Why would a building owner want to create arson for their own building?
Well, if it
is there
was
a profit motive there?
Yeah. Well, if there's a situation where the owner is not able to refinance the house, most small owners can't make ends meet on the rents alone, particularly if it's low-income people. They really do need that refinancing. If they can't do that, they may be forced into a situation where it's cheaper for them to get some sort of insurance payback based on an arson, a fire, than to try to maintain the building, short of refinancing on their own. Right. So some owners, this is not most, because a lot of the houses that were burned and so forth, there were other reasons, faulty wiring, overcrowding, and other kinds of factors, but some of the houses were burned as a result of arsonists being paid. They get paid. I knew a guy, for instance, in the Bronx who used to get paid. He was a drug addict, and they pay him $50 and he'd go burn a house, go up into the back fire escape and throw a kind of gasoline and so on, and get the place burning, and they wind up vacating the building as a result. So in any case, the topography of the neighborhood started to change drastically by the late 60s and into the early 70s.
We did an interview with a woman who showed us photos of Paraiso Community Garden, and she shows us pictures that literally look like post-war Berlin.
Yeah.
Of this community rubble, this vacant lot. That looked like a rubble heap. I mean, why would, like on Avenue C and D and was it 9th Street? Is it?
No, 5th, between 4th and 5th.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, this is typical not only of this neighborhood, and not only of other neighborhoods in this city, but neighborhoods, particularly poor neighborhoods of primarily people of color throughout the country. This is a phenomenon that we refer to as spatial deconcentration, which is a military phrase, surprisingly, but really the notion of planned shrinkage, such that various neighborhoods throughout the city and the country suffered this level of disinvestment and so forth as a result, not so much of purely economic motives, but of motives of social control. At least this is what I believe. So that by the mid-70s, neighborhoods across this country were, as you were saying, typified by vast stretches of vacant lots, burned out buildings, and areas that looked as though that had been bombed out.
I mean, Roger Starr, I think his name is. He talked about literally wanting to move. Said there were too many, quote, blacks and Puerto Ricans in New York City, quote, and so they come for jobs, but there's no jobs. So then let's move them out of the city. Literally that. So it's like there's this displacement pattern that starts to happen. Yeah. When did you start to, I mean, you've been a squatter. When did you start to get an idea that people were being displaced out of neighborhoods and communities in their homes?
In 1979, 1980, I was fortunate enough to meet with some folks who were associated with the Grassroots Unity Conference, which was a group in Washington, D.C., associated with the Black United Front, and some other groups in D.C., and a woman by the name of Yolanda Ward and some friends of hers turned me on to a series of documents that they had liberated from various HUD offices around the country, which pointed to this program which I refer to as spatial deconcentration. And what it was essentially is that growing out of the Kerner Commission reports in the late 60s, the Kerner Commission was a federal commission set up by President Johnson through executive order to study the causes of the riots in the urban centers. There were 107 such so-called riots in 1967 alone across the country. So in the case, long story short, is that the Federal Commission advocated its housing sector in the Civil Disorder Commission advocated dispersal of the urban centers as a way to undermine the potential for civil disorder, read social protest and resistance.